2024 has had no shortage of pretty awesome to pretty mid to pretty bad anime. But today, we are going to discuss what, in my opinion, were the cream of the crop. Videos that I'm going to start doing at the end of the year. Recapping, in my opinion, what were the top 10 anime of 2024. And I'll be open and honest right out of the gate, all but 3 of these are sequel seasons, which I threw back and forth on whether I wanted my list to solely be shows that were either a first season of something or just a one-off thing. But the more I looked at the list of stuff that I watched this year and was shocked to see how short the list actually was, I was like, you know what, this will be easier. So without further ado, let's get into the list. Number 10. Starting off our list is one that I did react to on the channel, and honestly one that I kept forgetting that I reacted to. And though the series itself wasn't my favorite to do in terms of videos and all that, as I was watching the show and as I've sort of rewatched it, I found myself really having fun with Kaiju number 8. Again, by no means one of my favorites that's come out in a while, but just as I revisited it, rewatched some fights, some good stuff in that show, the animation, the art, the voice acting, it was top notch. The story itself was alright. Again, it was just one of those shows where it's just like, alright, 12 episodes, now go read the manga because season 2 is not going to come out for probably another 3 years. Again, I had more fun watching the show than making videos on the show, but despite all that, I had fun with Kaiju number 8, and I think it's fine to start out our list. Number 9. Our first sequel season. This one kind of changed positions around in the ranking, but I decided I had to keep it in. That being Konosuba Season 3. I had to include some comedy on the list, man, because looking at the rest of this list, there's not a whole lot of that, if for nothing else with Konosuba. The rest of it, I cannot give a single shit about. Story, action, don't care. It's so funny, which a lot of that comes down to the amazing voice acting, the editing, the timing of a lot of the jokes. But I will say, this season, more so in comparison to the first 2, genuinely felt like a good progression of the story, I feel like. At least in the particular case of Darkness. It was a season that truly cemented that though Kazuma, Aqua, Megumi, and Darkness aren't exactly your typical fantasy isekai group, but deep down, they still love each other as family. A very dysfunctional and idiotic family, but we love them for that as well. A great season. Some of the best gags in the series as a whole, and also just in all of anime, honestly. So hilarious. Had me belly laughing deep into the night. Can't wait for season 4. Number 8. Another sequel season. We're gonna be on that for a while, so get used to that. But another one I did react to on the channel, that being Oshinoko Season 2. Now this one I considered putting a little higher on the list, but then the more I looked at the other stuff that we had, I was like, you know what? It's fine being down here, because in comparison to the first season, for me personally, I think overall I enjoyed season 1 more than season 2, but season 2 absolutely felt like a continuation of season 1 proper. It felt more like a core 2 rather than a season 2. I had a lot of personal investment in the Tokyo Blade arc, having personal past experiences and plays and performances of the like, so there was a lot of fun discussions that were had in the reaction series, especially with that arc. But continuing on with the rest of it, it had great continuation of the romance, some ships that started to sail, and huge progression when it came to the plot and the mystery of the murders that take place in Oshinoko. It was a phenomenal season, absolutely fun to react to week on the channel. And where the season ends, characters end up in the opposite places that they started, and it makes me look forward to what all we're gonna get into when it comes to Oshinoko Season 3. Number 7. Once again, another sequel season, one that I made a video on, and when I was looking through all the stuff that's come out this year, I was like, oh, didn't know this came out. And it's kind of cheating, but we'll talk about it in a second. This, of course, being Classroom of the Elite Season 3. Now with some of these, it's kind of cheating just because I had the benefit of being able to watch both the previous seasons and like the newest season pretty much all back to back, so I was really fresh with it. But even so, despite all that, Classroom of the Elite for most people may not be the most interesting or even really good show that's come out in a while, but for me, I surprisingly found immense enjoyment in Classroom of the Elite, and season 3 especially had so many of those moments in which the script was flipped, the backstabbing, the intrigue, the drama, all taking place with like 15-year-old high schoolers. Ayano Koji cementing himself as one of my favorite anime protagonists. A lot of that having to do with this season. Just delving into his character, just how he's such an elite and how he's dedicated himself to this life. But yet this season opens up the possibility that him for once finally considering his future, what it may look like. And the final scene of this season cementing that maybe Ayano Koji is open to accepting a future, especially with somebody, but considering what else was set up by the end, that future may turn into a weakness. One that could be exploited as we go into season 4 later, whenever that may be. But yeah, Classroom of the Elite, an absolute treat, especially season 3. Good times. Number 6. Again, another show that I had the benefit of watching both season 1 and season 2 back to back on the channel, but it's one that I could not include. That, of course, being Mushoku Tensei season 2. Part 2. This section of episodes were the ones that had the most interesting conversations, especially when it came to the final 2 episodes. For that alone, I had to include it on the list. Honestly, I have to include it on my list of all time, but that will be for a different video. Part 2 had some of the best action and character moments in Mushoku Tensei up to that point. But of course, you don't have those moments without the entirety of season 2 and season 1 leading up to that point. But as I was watching it on the channel, it just, every episode it hit. And with those last 2 episodes hitting it with some of the most controversial scenes possibly in all of anime. And with my personal beliefs, I had a lot to talk about. But with all that, I was still happy to see these characters be happy. And with what is being set up for with season 3 in production, most likely coming out either next year or the year next, I cannot wait to see where Rudius and his new family head into the future, filled with most likely more turning points. He at least will have his wives, and possibly a third one on the horizon. Number 5. Another sequel season. One that I didn't know if I was going to include, but then as I thought back on the season, again, reacted to it on the channel week to week. A show that I have been following close to a decade at this point. That, of course, being My Hero Academia Season 7. I couldn't not include this. Again, if you don't know, My Hero for me, it's very influential. Ignore the rest of the fan base. That should not impact the quality and story that is My Hero Academia. And Season 7, though it didn't necessarily start the strongest for me, for this scene alone, spoiler warning, まだお前に追いつけるから。 Just what that meant just as a character, and also for me making a fan dub of that scene, which is doing really well on the channel. That combined with the amazing fights with Deku and Shigaraki and a lot of other amazing character moments in the second half of the season. Though I'm still angry that it was a 21 episode season because they counted 4 episodes that came out before the season, which were just recap episodes as episodes. I'll never get it, but it's incredible setup for what will be the final season, which most likely will be coming out in this next year. Though overall it was not necessarily my favorite season in the entirety of My Hero Academia, it had some of those moments that have absolutely cemented themselves as some of my favorites in the entire series. And for that alone, I think it deserves to at least be the middle of my list. Number 4. Speaking of a show that I've been following for a long time, one that I loved so much that I decided to go back to the first 4 seasons and rewatch them for the channel to refresh myself on the lore and the characters, that of course being Date A Live Season 5. A part of me was tempted to make this my number 1, but I decided to be humble. The summer this year was basically my Date A Live summer. Again, when Date A Live Season 5 was coming out, I found myself needing to refresh myself because it had been a long time since I had rewatched any of Date A Live. Fuck it, let's do it for the channel. Revisiting in the English dub, and man was that a fun time. But just talking about Season 5, of course. That, of course, being the culmination of the entire series up to that point. The battle against Origin. And though there is more in the novels that can be adapted into potentially a 6th season, I know that there has been talk, and when you can look at the show itself, this could be the end of Date A Live. If they decided that there would be no more, though my heart would hurt, honestly, it at least ends in a satisfying way. And it has possibly one of my favorite moments, not just in Date A Live, but in all of anime, specifically in episode 8, which, if you saw my video, yeah, the first half of this season was pure depression, but then the second half of it was just pure ecstasy. Though I have a little bit of my gripes with the studio change and just how it looks in comparison to a lot of the previous seasons, the story and the characters carries it. I love it. It's my ultimate guilty pleasure. Not guilty about it. I've said this for years. As someone who's been a Date A Live fan for a long time, it was satisfying to be here to watch the series potentially be at its end. But God, I really hope that there's more. Number 3. We're in the top 3 now. Man, we're speeding through this. I thought I had a lot more to say, but finally, one that's not a sequel season. One that I had a really fun time watching. One that I had not really a whole lot of expectations going into it. But as I was going through it, I was like, damn it, this could potentially be one of my favorite romances of all time. That being Alia Sometimes Hides Her Feelings in Russian. I have found myself already on my 3rd rewatch of the anime. And god damn it, why did this have to be a show that was based off a light novel? Which means no pictures, which means why should I bother? There is a manga. It's not caught up yet though, but whatever. It's fine. Season 2's in production. That'll most likely be next year. Hopefully Easily one of the best romances that has come out in a while, and it's one that I absolutely cannot wait to see more of. An amazing concept. A girl who hides her feelings in another language, but little does she know, the guy she has a crush on speaks the same language. As I talked about when reviewing this show, it's amazing that it's called Alia Hides Her Feelings in Russian, but a lot of the times Alia takes a back seat in the show despite being the named character, because the side characters, mainly with Yuki and with Alia's own sister, they end up stealing the show a lot of the time. But it is counterbalanced with amazing moments with Alia and Kuze. Oh man, so beautifully drawn as well. The animation's great, of course, and it's a weird world that really has a lot of rich characters in it, both literally and figuratively. And though obviously you can sort of see the trajectory of it, it leaves enough open where it's like anything could happen, and I'm here for it. Easily one of the best of the year, possibly one of the best ever. Number 2. Now my number 1 and number 2, I'm gonna be honest, you could interchange them for me personally, but just because I really had to argue with myself on which one went in which place, they're in those places for different reasons. But number 2, of course, goes to The Dangers in My Heart. Season 2. I nearly forgot that this came out this year, but it came out in the winter of this year, so it's what we started this year with, which is kind of fitting, because my number 2 is what we started this year with, and my number 1 is one that we ended the year with, but we'll get to that in a second. The Dangers in My Heart. God damn it, one of my favorite romance animes ever. So much so that I have gone into the manga of The Dangers in My Heart. I'm fully up to date with that. Yes, fully up to date. And even though going into season 2, I knew potentially where it was going to end up, it was fun seeing just what I have read in the manga being put into motion and just how beautiful it was. And honestly, it superseded what I originally read, especially when you get into the final episode. God damn, that is one of the most satisfying finales of anything, especially for romance anime. Honestly, hopefully, I imagine the manga will be coming to an end at some point soon. I don't know how long the anime is gonna go for. I mean, there's still a lot to adapt. And going into season 3, there's some fun times ahead. Again, if you know me, I kind of have some personal investment in this show because it reminded me once of a past life, an old spark if you were. Season 2's quality just upped it a million times over. Not needed, but it was great. And honestly, the production of this show is just, it's perfect. The voice actors of Ichikawa and Yamada are perfect. Of course, a lot of the side characters as well. The music, the animation, the art, it's just a perfect show. If you're into romances, absolutely watch The Dangers in My Heart. I didn't know anything about it when I first watched it, but after watching only 2 episodes, I was like, I need the manga now. I ain't waiting week to week for this shit. Easily number 2. Honestly, because of this season, I might have to redo the top 10 romance anime because I think it's gone up a bit. Number 1. I'm sure you could guess what it is. I'm sure it's gonna be in a lot of other people's top 10 as well. That, of course, being Dandadan. Naturally. Come on. Again, like I said, Dangers in My Heart Season 2 and Dandadan, they kind of, for different reasons. Best romance anime of the year, Dangers in My Heart Season 2. Best overall anime, Dandadan. Again, watched it week to week. It's going to be interesting to revisit. I haven't really revisited it yet since making the videos, but it's just one of those shows. Again, like I reviewed it, it is just fun. Despite all the talk and yapping that constantly happens around it online, just don't bother with that. Just don't bother with that in general, first of all. It's just a fun time. People will say like, oh, it's animated, good, and all that, and that's all people can say about it. Like I said in my video, no, this is not Jujutsu Kaisen where it's just animation and nothing else. It has surprisingly mature themes of romance, of life, of beliefs. And again, I joked about it. It's possibly the best, or at the very least, most realistic romance ever, despite being a show about spirits and aliens, just because of the characters of Okuro and Ayase, where it's just like, it just feels like such a natural progression of romance and friendship. And it's some of the best voice acting I've heard in anime in a long time. In terms of new anime, let's say that. The voice actors of Ayase, give her whatever the Oscar equivalent of voice acting is, because yeah, that's some good stuff. Of course, the show's beautiful, music's great, great side characters with Granny Dodoria, Aira, Gigi, Turbo Granny, the backstory episode of Acrobatic Silky being some of the just gut-wrenching shit, despite what the rest of the show surrounding it is about. And it's a show that I'll never forget about, hopefully. Well, I mean, I've made a reaction series about it, so naturally I will never forget it. So good. 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10. I can't wait to revisit it again now having the full season. Sucked that it's blue-balled, but at least we have a date roughly of when season 2 will be. July of next year. But hey, that's what we sign up for with these 12-episode anime adaptations. But yeah, this was my top 10 anime of 2024. Let me know know what your favorite anime of 2024 was. I really tried hard to justify some other ones that I was gonna get on this list, but I was just like, nope, I can't. These ones have to be the ones. A lot of the shows that came out in the summer of this year were definitely in contention, but you know what? We had a good selection here. Some of them definitely could maybe be swapped around with others, but this is the list as it is right now. But yes, thank you all for joining me for this year of anime for 2024. We had some good stuff this year, some good times. A lot of this was sequel stuff, but hey, it was some of the best sequel stuff. I hope you'll join me for many other videos of the sort, be they future anime reviews, reactions, gameplay, and everything else to be coming out soon. So thank you all for joining me on this. I'm Lancer. Thanks for watching.